Hello, Internet. Today, let's talk about quitting. This week, I've been reading A Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell, and it's a classic book in which he outlines his theory of the monomyth and the hero's journey. And basically, he argues that in every story or myth throughout human history, the hero in the story has basically gone through the exact same path to get from point A to point B. And essentially, like all of our stories just sort of repeat the same pattern over and over and over again through history. It was written in 1949, and he researched thousands of years of recorded human history. But since its publication, it's actually influenced a lot of storytellers, filmmakers, writers, even to this day, where they'll use the hero's journey as sort of the template for their own story. It's a very important work and one that I've heard about over the years, and so I picked it up to read it, and I'm quitting after about 100 pages, and here's why. I know that it's a great book and it's one that I should read, but the truth is I just don't enjoy reading it. There are many references to stories and myths that I don't understand, and so I lack the context to have like a full understanding of his argument. And frankly, there are people much smarter than I am who have already read the book and have created summaries either in writing or in video form that I could go read or watch, and I can get a pretty solid understanding of the framework that Campbell's building in his book for the hero's journey. And I don't need to spend my time slogging through a 400-page tome that I don't particularly enjoy. My time could be better spent doing something else. So I've decided to quit and put the book back on the shelf. And some of you might say, well, Paul, you're cheating if you're reading like a Cliff Notes or whatever, or you should always finish a book that you start. And I used to agree with you, but now I don't, and I'm going to explain why. If I'm not enjoying a book, if my mind is wandering while I'm reading, if I have to go back and reread stuff that I've already read to understand what it is that's on the page, then it's probably not worth my while. Like, my time is probably spent doing something else that's actually going to add value to my life. Now, that's not to say that the book isn't good or that the content isn't valuable. It's just that in that moment, it's not what I want to be reading. And so I have no problem with putting a book down if it isn't adding value to me. Reading should be enjoyable. And if the act of reading the book is not, then I'm not going to get anything out of it, even if the book is really great. And so if you're really not into a book, there's no shame in putting it down and picking up something that you'd rather read. Now, the caveat there, of course, is if you're a student and you're assigned this book, then you really have no choice but to kind of stick with it, whether you like it or not. And so in that case, like, do the work. But if you're reading for pleasure and it's not bringing you pleasure, then put the book down and pick up something else. And of course, this idea extends beyond just reading books. I think it extends to many parts of life. And I guess if I could distill it down to just a couple of words, I'd say quit what you don't love. Over the last couple of days, I've been working on this video that I had the idea kind of bouncing around in my head for a while. And the other day I decided to actually start working on it. And in my head, it seemed like a great idea. And then I started filming and I started editing, and I realized pretty quickly that, like, I don't like this. It didn't feel right, and I knew that it wasn't going to be good. And so I put it aside. I quit. And then I can move on to do something else. I think too often we fall for the sunk cost fallacy, which basically is the belief that I have to continue down this particular path. Otherwise, all of the money, time, energy that I've spent on this thing, whether it's a book or a project or a job, all of it is wasted if I don't see it through. And that reasoning is flawed because all of that time and energy that you have already spent is gone whether you continue or not. So once you reach the point that you realize that, hey, I'm no longer enjoying this book, or this project isn't what I thought it was going to be, at that moment, stop and then go do something else that's more valuable, because you're just wasting resources on a thing that you're not fully invested in. So sometimes quitting is good, but here's what I'm not saying. Don't quit because a thing is hard. quit because it's no longer adding value to your life. There's value in doing hard things and reading hard books and working on difficult projects. We learn from them. They make us stronger, smarter, better people. And so it's important to do those things. But difficulty and value are not on the same axis. So let me show you what I mean. So if we were to chart the value or enjoyment that we get out of anything, whether it's a book or a project or any endeavor, it probably looks something like this. In the early stages, when it's really easy, we're probably not getting much out of it. But as it gets harder, we learn a lot more and we are able to get a lot more value out of that thing. But as the difficulty increases, this begins to dip back down and it sort of looks like a bell curve. And so what I mean by that, if you go to read a book on like quantum physics and you're not a super smart person, then you're probably over here. And so you're not going to get much out of it because the book is over your head. Likewise, if you're over here and you're reading like the Boxcar Children and you're a really smart person, it might be fun, but you're probably not going to learn a lot because your skill level is well above that of the book. The key is to find the things that are right in here where we get the optimal amount of value out of the difficult thing. And then what happens is over time, the more challenged you are, you're able to push this chart further to the right so that now your range is further down the line of difficulty. And so for me, I think that probably this book is maybe a little too far to the right for me. The basic ideas I get, but I don't really feel the need to slog through 400 pages to get the main idea of the book. And the same goes for you. If you are trying to make your way through that huge 500-page book that you must read or that all of your friends have read, like put it down and go read something that you like, because you're not going to get anything out of it if you don't enjoy it. So at the end of the day, quit whatever you don't love, be careful of the sunk cost fallacy, and find things that are challenging and that enrich your life. And that's all for this one. I hope you have a great week. I'll see you next time.